Hey Liam, welcome to the Start and Grow Show. I'm super happy to have you today. Excited to get into this conversation. We're going to talk, more about consulting, about what you're doing out in the marketplace. Really, let's just get into it. So, what kind of started your entrepreneurial journey? Where did you kind of, get the itch, I guess, to get into this, into the consulting business or other businesses you've been in? Give us a bit of your background, Liam.
Yeah, well, look, thank you firstly for having me on here, Craig. It's really nice to be invited on here. And look, I think naturally I'm a born entrepreneur. I think it's something within me. I've never really felt comfortable within the workplace because I'm not someone who rebels against it, but I've just never really felt like I fitted into a system, right? So in terms of where it started from, my mum, she has her own business. My uncles and my family, I come from a long line of people that have started and run their own business. And for me, that's been ingrained in me as a child, as everything I've always liked to do when I've been growing up is listening to these people talk about how they started their business, how they're growing it. So I've come from a family of successful sort of entrepreneurial sort of startup background. Obviously, my mum's been a big part of my career and sort of why I've moved down that route. So it's been ingrained in us as a family to sort of start businesses, go out, run with ideas, be sort of creative, be sort of different to what it is. And that sort of led me to the path where I am today.
That's so great to hear. Honestly, I think that we need more families like that encourage it. I know when I was, growing up, I was just trying to be an entrepreneur on my own. I had, government kind of employee parent types, working the 9 to 5ers, and, the encouragement to get from your parents to, to be creative and chase cash flow, but through solving problems rather than, just, taking a job. So very cool. So, you're in a consulting company now. So this Samuel Joseph Consulting, let's talk a bit about this organization and, how did that get started?
Yeah, so Samuel Joseph Consulting, people get misconcepted with it. It's Samuel Joseph's my middle name. So I've essentially set up a business. I wanted to sort of set the brand because, when setting up a company, you've got to sort of set it up as its own entity. It's a limited business. So that is my company. That's my baby. That's what I've decided to leave sort of a big corporate world for. And yeah, it's a sales and marketing consultancy. So typically working with startups, small businesses, predominantly in the tech space, but sort of it can range depending on that. But they're usually sort of my sweet spot, and helping them really right at the front end of what they're doing with their sales and marketing. So developing that strategy towards growth, lead generation, things like that. I really help them sort of understand who they're targeting, how they can get their message out to them, and what's their offer. And really sort of work with them through a workshop and sort of put together a framework, which then is delivered in a report. And that very much is where I sort of provide the most value in what I do. There's other areas I come in. I can do coaching sort of towards the sales cycle. I've been senior sales roles a lot of my career, but fundamentally that's where we sort of specialize in our support. There's other areas along the sales and marketing cycles that we can get involved in, but really where our USP is in focusing right at the front end. So why do you want to, what do you want? What's the aim for the business? Oh, we want to grow 20%. Why? What do you want to do? So we want more leads. Okay, well, how have you been doing it currently? And then we sort of understand their current process and then rely and sort of relate it to sort of the modern day. What's going on? Is it LinkedIn? Is it, where are your audience base? And we do a lot of that discovery for them, put plans in place. And, to be honest with you, we're quite, we've seen a lot of success in this, and it's actually, a lot of the time it's just me sort of taking the outside look at someone's business. They know how it runs. They're so used to their customers, word of mouth and everything, but sort of giving them that sort of other sort of lens to it, I've seen has provided them the most value because they're like, yeah, we've just never thought of it that way, right? So that's where I come in as sort of a consultant and can help clients in that space.
So yeah, that sounds very interesting. So, after now working with, a ton of different companies, what are some of the common problems you're seeing, entrepreneurs having? Again, you say you bring that kind of outside, view. I've seen that a lot too. They're so busy working on their business. So what are some of the common challenges that you're seeing kind of right off the bat that are, almost trend-like, that you're seeing in every business?
I'll sort of give you a couple general ones, and then I'll sort of relate it to my industry, which is sales and marketing. In general, and look, I can sort of fall prone to this as well, is that entrepreneurs spend a lot of time focusing on the wrong things. So getting dragged down into other areas of the business where, as an entrepreneur and as a startup, you really need to be focusing on, cash flow, revenue, getting money into the business. There is we all try and be perfectionists and we want the perfect website, and we spend a lot of time doing things that sometimes aren't the most critical. So I always talk about, I think it's called the Eisenhower framework, about sort of boxing stuff up into like urgent and things like that. So they can really start to dictate, okay, is that an urgent task that needs to be responded to now? It's an email from the accountant. No, box that one up later, deal with that later in the week. It's making them sort of keep accountable of where they need to be focused on. So a lot of it is getting distracted by tasks that aren't sort of priorities that they should be focusing on in general day to day or week to week. So, a lot of time I deal with sort of, online businesses, and they're like, oh, we've got a brand new campaign that it's this shiny new idea that they have. And I'm like, what about the last one? What about the metrics from the last one? What was the ROI of it? How successful? Well, we want something new. And it's like, I try and really keep people grounded and go, okay, you need to really understand the results of what you've done. If that's worked well, then yeah, show up, go ahead. But if it hasn't, don't sort of come up with this idea, let's reflect, let's think what's actually critical for the business. So, keeping focus to sort of your key critical tasks is number one. But, I think as all of us, we fall foul to that's normal, but trying to do that. In sales and marketing, the key thing that I'm seeing in sort of the entrepreneurial space and the sort of small business space is that a lot of people are sort of doing the whole trial and error thing with marketing, right? And that's normal, right? That's completely, as a startup, you need to sort of try it out, and I really help businesses try and understand that as quick as possible. But there's a lot of people getting burnt in, I would say, sort of PPC, SEO, digital marketing agencies, putting a lot, not really delivering much. And it's leaving everyone with a bit of this sort of bad taste in their mouth when it comes to marketing, because they're saying, oh, well, I was promised this and I invested some of this and it never worked. And really, they just needed to sort of put some strategy and systems in play, and also talk to their customers more, actually understand what they're looking for. So I think there's a bit of sort of fatigue in the marketing space where everyone's got a bit burnt by pay-per-click ads. They've done some Google advertising, but unless you're spending $100 a day, you're probably not going to be top ranked, right? So I think everyone's finding a bit, they're a bit burnt out in that sense. And as a small business, you probably need 20 or 30K probably to start a really effective Google ads campaign or something like that. I was told, unless I was spending $70 a day, don't even bother. So I think entrepreneurs are finding it quite hard to break through the sheer noise in the marketing world of, AI's now, accelerated that with ChatGPT content that everyone's just pumping out. I think entrepreneurs are really finding it hard to break through those barriers and actually get their message across to their target audience. So, I would really encourage people to take a step back, understand a bit more about their message and their audience, how personalized they can get, and try and break through it that way. Because I think the overload in technology at the moment in the marketing world has just led to everyone's message sort of getting sounded out, shall I say. It's not really coming through as best as they would want it to do. And they're sort of wasting a lot of money into some of the techniques that they've been told to do, purely because there's a bit of a bidding war going on, and everything's going on in that phase. So I think the two things I think people in sort of startups, entrepreneurs are struggling with is finding where it's best to spend their time, and also, the marketing world burning a lot of people at the moment that they're all getting really angry towards it. It's about taking a step back and understanding their customer more, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that when I talk to a lot of businesses. It's I learned this new saying not too long ago. You got to slow down to speed up. And I think you're right. There's so much noise out there and so many things people can do. I've been in the marketing space for over 20 years. And 20 years ago there was like, no apps out there to help you with your marketing, and now there are hundreds of thousands of applications and tools and channels, I guess, to market. So I can understand how you're finding that same challenge. I want to talk a bit about the AI side of things. Are you seeing that? Like, is there interest in your kind of clientele for that stuff? Like, I know it's marketers and people that are on Twitter and stuff and TikTok, like all the marketers, that you hear a lot of the buzz and a lot of people wanting to do this stuff and doing this. But like in the real world, like in the business world, people like yourself, people like your clients, like, is it even kind of like knocking on their door? Like, I don't know. I don't see it as much. I think it's more, people are curious, but they're not using it. It's hardcore marketers and, growth hackers and just, some advanced professionals are using it. But what's your experience?
Yeah, so look, I am very much I'm the side of the fence that says AI is fantastic for helping to speed up processes, but it does need a human behind it to control it. It's not going to take a full job away. It might limit some jobs, if you do have a large team of copywriters, I think you could probably cut that down in long term once sort of ChatGPT sort of expands itself. But I think in the AI sort of world and space, yes, like I work with a number of SaaS technologies, right? And they are literally just saying, AI is what we do and it's part of what we do. And look, it can help some of the processes on the back end, it can speed it up. But I went to a conference the other day full of technology providers, and every single one had AI driven power, powered by AI and all this. So it's sort of something you have to say nowadays, because
Yeah.
it stands out as that sort of fundamental tech. I think just a lot of systems in play have AI, and they're sort of then putting that as part of their marketing messages. In terms of what else am I seeing, if I go on most sort of calls, I'll see Firefly Notes, which is essentially an AI software that just takes all the notes from the call and sends it to you after. So I think, so in the sales and marketing world, yes, I think AI is going to play an advantage to people that have it, in a sense, having your notes from a call that saves me actually writing it all down after. There's little things there. I think it's going to save time in people's day, and that's an important factor that I think we need to take into consideration. Saving time is massive, right? So I think that's the benefit that I'm seeing for it at the moment. I don't think, if I can now spot ChatGPT content when I look on social media, I can spot exactly who is using it, the style, the format, and everything. So I think AI is going to get to a point in the next near future where if you use AI as part of your marketing, it's not going to get through. SEO is going to block it, things like that. So I think it's going to run its sort of life value in that sense. I think you're going to have to get really creative with how you use it, interject it in parts, get it to do research, help it speed up systems and processes. So yeah, I'm on the thing that it's beneficial to have it as part of what you do in your day-to-day, but it just needs to help sort of streamline some of your systems and your processes. You essentially need to be in front of it. You need to, authenticity is so key at the moment. That needs to be in the forefront of your marketing message. It can't be AI generated. So it's going to help speed up and improve processes, but it's not going to take away human jobs, or it's not going to take away complete marketing teams.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on a lot of those points. I think you're right. As much as these systems are intelligent at generating content, they're also very intelligent at detecting, who generated the content. So I agree with you. I think your authenticity message, it rings really true. And I think a lot of people need to realize that and just keep telling stories rather than, asking a robot to kind of regurgitate stories. So yeah, that's really good. So how do you, let's go back to your business and how you engage with your clients. So when you find a new client, let's talk a bit more about your process of kind of how you deliver value to them. We always talk about sales and marketing, getting leads, closing them, but hey, the door's closed now. They signed the contract. What does value creation and delivery of that value, look like, to one of your clients?
Yeah, so I guess I always start off with sort of a discovery / consultation to really dive deeper into the problem there. And because on surface, they'll send me their website and go, this is what we're doing, this is a bit of our marketing. And on paper, it always looks all right. You've got your Google reviews, you've got a decent web page, you've got, things here and there that I'm looking at and going, that sort of ticks most boxes as, yeah, you're an established business. But until I do the consultation, I start to eke out some of the issues that I'm finding, or some of the process that they're taking, or how they go to market. Typical thing I will always ask a client, Craig, is I'll always go, can you tell me your USP in a couple sentences? And it's all, oh, well, we've got these amazing features, and I've got these products, and I'm like, that's not your USP. You need to hit me quick. So a lot of it's just getting them out of the mindset of that they know their product so well that they think everyone else can understand that in a 30-minute call. It's not always the case. They need to understand what the buyer's looking for, what are their problems, what are their challenges, and if the products can even solve the solution. And that's sort of a lot of what I do in the discovery call, is understand. I do a bit of what I call an audit. So I understand sort of the process, sales and marketing, what they're doing, how it's going, where the gaps are. And then from there, where I look to really drive value is where sort of the gaps are. So I do build sort of what I call sort of a strategy out from that. And that does address the points that they're sort of saying they're lacking in. So I did one this week, and they were really struggling to understand. Very typical use case I deal with, business just relies on word of mouth, right? So, I talked about, well, if, majority of your business relies on word of mouth, do you incentivize people that give you word of mouth, referrals? Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I don't, I just think they're going to come to us. I said, well, offer $250 voucher. See what happens there. Go back to your audience, see what, And we're just, what I do is I try and elevate sort of the things that are working well. And in the stuff they've never touched, then we put a plan in place. But this is never a quick win. This is a long-term process. This is them adjusting to a new strategy, putting the systems in place, and then trying to win work. So yes, the results I'm ultimately trying to achieve is what they're looking to do, which is usually drive growth, more leads, more revenue, etc. But getting them to understand, what they're currently doing and how they need to tweak that as well to sort of, improve on that. So that's really the value where I do. And look, a lot of the time they'll come back to me and go, yes, I've, closed a few of our sales meetings, I've increased this, I've done that. And that's fine. That's fantastic. I never want to be there long-term for a client because I really want to help them put these systems in place and then get them off and running and then move on to the next one. I like solving the problems, and that's really where the value sort of I lie in. And that there is the most typical use case. We rely on word of mouth. We've been doing what we've done for 20 years, but we want to grow our business 20%. New board, new management teams come in. How do we do it? So I'm like, focus on what you do well. Make sure you cover that more. And then let's put a system in place for that. But it usually takes 3 to 6 months to get up and running. And that's the hard part of me convincing sort of the new management structure is that, look, you guys want a lead generation system. You've got nothing in place now. You've never done it. You've barely got a LinkedIn profile. Let's start to build this up, and then we'll sort of try and, really grow your business, sustainably. It's got to be sustainable. There's no point buying followers and all that. You've got to really sustainable, gain an audience and all that. So yeah, that's sort of really where I try and drive the value into my clients.
That's great. That makes a lot of sense. How do you structure? I know a lot of consulting companies and freelancers, and a lot of what you do, there's some degree of, I guess, customization. Like you said, you go through discovery calls and things like that. So how do you actually structure your engagements? So I've seen a lot of people do, hey, it's a 6-month engagement and it's 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is. We don't need to talk about price, but how do you actually engage? Do you do retainers, project? Do you bill hours? Like, how do you structure, the actual, offer, I guess, in terms of
so
what you're
through my business. So if it's direct through my business, because I work on Fiverr and Upwork, and I'll come into that in a minute. But through my actual business, I sort of have 3 packages, which is, workshop report, and then me retained afterwards to sort of fill in the gap. Workshop report, me retained for a year. And why that's useful is because what I usually, in a lot of these discussions, they come to me and they go, I need to hire a salesperson to fill in these gaps. Can you do the strategy? And I go, well, why do you need a salesperson? Why are you going to have that 50, 60, 70,000 cost outlay when you have no process in play? Put me in the role for a day a week. Let me get the things up and running. Once it's up and running, hire a salesperson. And that's where that's the value I can really bring. And that's sort of why we've got that 3 package model. So that's more on the package side. So there's sort of offerings I do. There are companies that just have, so I work in a fractional sense of strategy and growth leads in about 2 or 3 companies. So that's in a sense where I just work a day a week of my time, or half a day usually. It's set amount of hours, 20 hours a week or so. And I sort of will just continue with sort of ongoing tasks there. So that's more of the flexible approach. I do sort of listen to scopes, but I really try and push them down the packages, because for me, it's not systemized, but I sort of have a process in play. I know the value they're going to get out of it. And it's really designed for that certain audience that I know really fits my sphere of what I'm trying to really sort of push towards. And yeah, the point in me, and I actually got told this by a CEO, and that's sort of why it's been my USP, is that a company took me on and a sort of a more junior employee on as a point of their startup, right? And they said, Liam, I don't have to talk to you. You just get on with tasks. You're sort of old enough, senior enough to do it. They said, I spent so much time training and doing it for someone else, it was impossible, and I had to let them go, where I'm never going to have that case for me. So I really sort of realized that my sweet spot is coming into a company that doesn't want the risk of a full-time hire, sitting in there sort of, providing board notes, sitting at sort of a senior level for a period of time until they're ready to make that change, and once the strategy started to implement. So yeah, package option, then I have the hourly option, and then on Fiverr and Upwork, I take sort of Fiverr's much more project-based gigs, so that's my sales and marketing strategy I sell on Fiverr. And then through Upwork, a lot of it is much more sort of senior, fractional level, sort of senior sales roles, where I'll come in and work with a client that's really looking to implement change. For example, I'm working with one right now that's it's also usually, sorry if I mentioned, they're looking to sort of develop a bit of a strategy around how they do it. That's typically my sweet spot. I'm working with a client now that predominantly just sells to public sector, so just has government-based contracts. And they're like, hey, we really want to start pushing into private. We've got long-term deals here. We now need to shift the focus, but that's a complete shift in tone, messaging, how we operate as a business from a sales front. And that's where I'm coming in and really sort of changing the strategic direction away from sort of a tender-based process, basically, to sort of outbound, targeting private sort of commercial-based businesses. So typically that's sort of a role where I'd come in and sort of help with the strategic direction of everything, put the strategy in play, and then sort of implement myself for a period of time until they need sort of a sales team or sort of a full function in play.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. That's valuable. I think a lot of people struggle with, they have a skill set and they don't know how to actually derive value out of it, how to actually charge for it. And I think there's a lot of different models, a lot of different ways people can do it. And I think it's good to hear other options. So, another question I like to ask, consultants like yourself is, how do you balance, the work between your clients, and growing your own business? I think that's another challenge. A lot of, there's this kind of teeter-totter that happens, all of a sudden you get lots of business and you're full out, and then maybe they're on 3-month contracts and then they drop and you got to go start lead gen. Like, how do you balance that for, between the work you're doing with them and the work you need to do for your own growth and your own longer term vision and goals?
Yeah, look, that's a massive problem that I faced in the first couple of months of my business. So the whole feast and famine cycle. Funny enough, I started in December last year. January was probably my best month, because I just did lead gen, smashed out January. I remember it got to February 1 and just had nothing. So I went lead gen for 2 weeks, lead gen as hard as I could for 2 weeks. And the rest of February, I made my January target with the last 2 weeks, but I was working crazy hours to make it back. I got to March and I was like, I am so burnt out, and I've hit my monthly target, but I've just worked so hard for it, doing small based projects. Now, look, you have to do them at the start because you need reviews on the platforms and things like that. So look, I needed that, but I said to March, and I said, this is not a sustainable business model because I'm literally just flipping and flopping. And so I said in March, I said, I'm not going to make as much revenue, but going to really focus on the business. And what I wanted to do was build up longer term value clients. So essentially, clients that are going to pay me more, but they're going to take a while to sort of win over. They're not going to be like, hey, Liam, we need a report, $300, $500, whatever. This is like, hey, we're going to try and build up to a couple of thousand sort of thing. So I worked a much longer term strategy, targeted clients with more of a budget, in a sense, that's sort of looking to develop long-term value. And then in April, I've actually really started to see this kick off, where I've sort of got 3 long-term clients now that are paying me much better. I'm working probably a normal schedule and achieving what I was in January. But what I would encourage people to do is, March was a really hard month for me to go, I actually need to step back, because I felt like absolute crap in the middle of March, because I was like, I feel exhausted. I look tired. Everyone's saying that to me. And I'm like, I just saw the previous cycle going work, stop. It was like, that's not a thing. So I had to actually build more of a sustainable model, which is just different types of lead gen, trying to grow social media, doing, like you said, focusing a lot on the brand, but building up for longer term value clients that are actually going to deliver the same results that I was achieving. But, it's going to take a longer while to win them over. And now I've got a thing where I've got more of a continuous pipeline. That was very much short, sharp. So yeah, I would encourage any entrepreneur listening to this, that if you are sort of going through those feast and famine cycles, very typically, a lot of work, nothing, a lot of work, take a step back and understand how you can manage your pipeline for the long term, because that's not a sustainable model. And it will take 1 month where you get absolutely nothing, and then you're just completely, burnt and completely done. So just take a step back. Sometimes you sometimes need it, even if it is a bit of a loss of revenue. Understand how the business can be more sustainable going forward.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's it's a very common kind of narrative, I think. And, a lot of people really, that feast and famine cycle is so hard, where you're just building from nothing, so it sounds like you went through things pretty quick, which is great. Let's talk a bit about that burnout. I think this is a common topic we just don't talk about enough as entrepreneurs. And, what are some of the strategies you use to kind of come out of that? You're right. You can end up, working, 15-hour days, you're working on client stuff, the motivation wanes, the energy wanes. So how did you really deal with that to kind of, like tactically and strategically, we kind of heard that, but like, how did you deal with it yourself? Because burnout is not something that, you know, is easy to kind of deal with all the time.
Yeah, I think, look, I know when it's happening, and look, I worked quite senior corporate roles before this, and I you know, I've suffered it before, and I just knew towards the end of February it was coming up. I was like, what I was doing, you know, the first 2 months I'd set out to what I achieved, and I did, but I was like, I just looked for the rest of the 10 more months, and I was like, I can't do this how it's currently going. So I think you need to acknowledge when, you know, things are getting to a point where it's not sustainable. Like for me, it's like if I carried on like that, like I would not have, you know, I've got a fiance, I've got a house, you know, it's hard to really manage all this and the impact it has on everyone else, you know. So I needed to make those adjustments because I knew that wasn't going to work long-term sustainably personally and also in my work life. So yeah, I think you need to acknowledge, you need to take a step back. You always need to manage you know, what's going on around you. I set myself targets this week to go to the gym. I have to literally remind myself to do that. I go to try and do 10,000 steps every day. I need to make sure, you know, on a personal level, I'm trying to keep my, you know, mind as healthy as I can and my body as healthy as I can, because that sort of leads into the burnout stuff. So yeah, it's just it's trying to be aware of your mental state and how you're sort of going as much as possible, and realize that it's not a good thing to do long term. It's not sustainable. And you're, you know, the one thing I always read from entrepreneurs is that everyone works this way and then they need 6 weeks off. Like that to me is
Yeah.
that to me is more catastrophic to my business than it would be achieving that certain target. You know, really sometimes you just need to take a step back, understand the greater picture, and go, is it actually all worth it? You do need to put the hours in the entrepreneur, especially at the start. I completely understand that. I'll never hold anyone back for doing that, but you need to be smart about what you do. So yeah, just sort of try and read out, understand your mental well-being and state, and look at ways that you can sort of avoid suffering from burnout. Because trust me, you would rather be focusing on your business for a shorter period in your day than having 6 weeks off because you're completely burnt out.
100%. That's great advice, Liam. And yeah, exercise and, you know, getting outside, those are all really, really important things. Let's talk a bit about, you know, your systems. Let's talk about kind of like how you built up your business. So you've got a website, you're on Twitter. Let's just talk a little bit about, you know, you're not a large business, but we talked about automation and processes and systems. So what do you kind of use to, you know, use for your lead generation, use for productivity? Just curious about the tools, you know, in your tool belt.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, like every entrepreneur, I went out there and tried to set up every system and get every trial to every marketing tool and software and just assume it would all work well. But look, I did that at the start. I've now narrowed it down. So everything essentially runs through my HubSpot, my emails, my everything. HubSpot is my baby, and everything is just through there. The website, the downloads, and I can see it all on a dashboard. And to me, that's all I need. And HubSpot's fantastic because it links in with Zapier and you know, all these other systems that I have. So yeah, I essentially found one tool that can manage all, and that's essentially what I was looking for. So yeah, I sort of that helped me really with my process. In my day-to-day in my business, I use pretty much PowerPoints, Words, things like that. You know, I use a tiny bit of AI to help me maybe think of ideas, but most of the content is from me. That's what you're paying me for. So that's all myself. Just trying to think of other systems and processes that I use. I think, yeah, you know, I will have Calendly's and things like that. I think that really helps as part of everything, you know, automated sort of calendar schedules, you know, as part of businesses. I really lean to the idea of, you know, offering people times in their day rather than saying, hey, I'm free next week to chat. It's like, no, I'm free next week at Monday at 2 to 3 if you have time. So Calendly really helps with that. So yeah, there's a few marketing tools that I use. Again, it's all linked into my HubSpot, which is fantastic. HubSpot's a CRM, if everyone doesn't know.
Yeah.
That sort of hosts and hubs everything. So for me, I have my dashboards on there. I can see everything quite clearly. It links into my accounting software, so I can see that versus, you know, everything. So yeah, I think the systems and process I've set in place help me get a really clear picture of what's going on in my business. So I would encourage you at the start, try some demos, try some, you know, trials of tools, see what works for your business. But essentially, my biggest thing is not having everything separate and trying to go through that. It's all through one space. you're right on the social media front. What I was sort of alluding to at the start is, yes, I got every single social media account for the business, and I was trying to grow each one at once. And look, that's very hard to do. They all need a different content strategy. I would encourage you not to share your Twitter stuff on Facebook. They need a different strategy. I have decided in the last couple of weeks I'm going all in on Twitter. That is my focus. I've seen an engagement in the last few weeks, increase in followers. And that's because I've just decided that's the one for me. I had an Instagram, I had a Facebook. It's just not where I think my target audience is right now. I'm really focusing on Twitter. So if you are going to go in all on one, please just focus on one social media channel. Look, LinkedIn's itself, in a sense, like I have a LinkedIn, I use that daily anyways, but I'm talking to really push your personal brand. You know, LinkedIn and a Twitter is probably my best bet. So that's where I'm really going to start to focus my time on in terms of that. But yeah, the website's great. The website, again, top of funnel, like all social media, it's useful for that, provides information. I'll give you an interesting thing as well, Craig. I didn't really want to launch my business till I made this perfect website that I spent months developing. I'm 3 months in and I'm already changing it because it's not hit the mark. So very typical entrepreneur startup thing there, where you think you need everything perfect and you need to make all things shiny and everything's going to be amazing. Honestly, 3 months in, it's not resonating because it actually doesn't have the problem that my clients are facing and the results I deliver. It has just information, right? So I'm getting that completely changed to be more like a click funnel. So yeah, my other thing to entrepreneurs out there is that sometimes you think you're going to need everything's going to fall into place in a nice, perfect way, and then you have this magical launch and everyone wants your product. It's not usually the case. Things are going to go wrong. Things are going to change. Don't think everything has to be perfect. Honestly, just go for it. Things will happen and fall into place as you do it. You can always get a website 2 weeks after your launch. That's fine. You can always get a landing page to start, things like that. So yeah, that's just a little lesson I learned from everything.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I agree a lot with you on the Twitter side of things. I don't know. It's since Elon's taken over, I think the media get it wrong. I think it's become a very rich environment. You're actually building relationships. I've met so many cool people. I've learned so much cool stuff on here, and I've built audiences on all the other platforms as well. And I just find that you're right. This is a very, I don't know, it's just a great networking tool. It's just really a great tool. On the HubSpot side too, it's an amazing tool. I was a HubSpot partner many years ago with one of our first agencies, and it's such a powerful tool. And I agree with you with the whole all-in-one. It really helps. So where are you going with this company? Let's talk a bit about longer term. What's your goal? Are you going to settle at a certain level of clients, keeping the model the same, or are you going to be expanding? Are you looking at being more of a management consulting, an agency? What's kind of the longer term vision?
I think, look, there's a lot of ways you can go with it. You can either go down the sort of, optimize everything into sort of a system or a course or like a digital module and sort of, move it down that sense where it's just sort of that automated business that runs in the background for you. There's one side. There's the other side of, moving more down the management consultancy route, which long-term would mean my fees will start to increase. So what I do, I give value, but I get paid a lot more, but that will come with experience and credibility and time. So there's that aspect of it. Or there's maybe into more of a platform or something, host everything on there, provide coaching and courses. People can log in. There's maybe a Discord or something. There's a couple of different ways I want to go. Probably I'm leaning more towards the management consultancy route and slowly but surely raising my rates to a point where, working a certain point or time in the day is really going to be quite, that's going to cover me quite well in a sense, where at the moment, my rate's not as high as it will be, but that's because I'm gaining reviews and credibility, right? So I think that would be the long term. Whether I go down the course route or teach, entrepreneurs how to start a sales business or whatever, maybe that might be something long term, but that would be again based on client interest. For me, the short-term aims is obviously I'm getting the website redone. I really want to sort of hone in, as I mentioned, on Twitter. I want to build out a newsletter because I think I have a lot of valuable information I want to share. So really, I want to start to audience build. And then from that, I will sort of try and get feedback from the audience about whether it's useful to go down a course route or whether I should just sort of just build an audience, gather an audience, but sort of keep what I'm doing, which is general day-to-day consulting. I'll sort of be guided by what I think the market would want. I don't want to be that person that launches a book for the sake of launching a book. If there is a real demand and people are like, we want to hear your story, how you started up as a business and now it's grown out and you can provide sales advice, then yeah, I think if they would be pushing me that way, then maybe. But I'm sort of open at the moment to where it's going, but I'm just really trying to build my brand and my audience and keep my customers retained.
That's amazing. I got one last question for you. This is for the audience, and those that are maybe thinking, "Hey, I like what Liam is doing. I would love to do that eventually." What is some advice you would give to some, maybe your younger self, someone that's looking at this and going, "Oh, this sounds like something that kind of fits my personality and my skill sets." What would you tell them?
Yeah, if you're really looking to sort of have a go at it in the real world, just don't hold back. Like, don't think about what everyone's going to think about you. And I was surprised by how many people actually supported what I was doing. When I did the big LinkedIn launch, I'm launching my business. Most of my DMs were like, "Liam, I wish I could do the same, but I don't it's not the right time in my life. I've got a mortgage, things like that." So I got so many people that were sort of wanting to do the same. So if you really are on the fence, there's so much information out there that you can read to guide you through the process. Like, please don't feel like you're going to be, in this complete lost world. Like, there's so much information that can help you with that. So yeah, just go for it. I think a lot of it has to do with timing and where you are in your life as well. Like, everyone says now is the best time to take action. I get if you have mortgage, you have kids, it's hard to do that. But, put yourself in a position, if you're going to go for it as an entrepreneur, put yourself in a position where you can afford to for a year or two. If your partner's working, work out how much it is you need between you each month to get by, and then just give it a crack. And I guarantee you'll put yourself more out there to actually try and achieve something because, there's more on the line, shall I say. You'll be surprised when the back's against the wall, how much you actually come out fighting. So yeah, I think, have a think about if it fits in with your current lifestyle, work out your finances and your future. Can you afford to take 2 years off with your partner working? Does that cover my payments? Or, do you need to move home? I actually had to move home last year because I moved back from Sydney. I was living over there back to London. I moved home for 6 months before I started my business because I was really thinking about, do I get a job? Do I not? I started my business at home because I was like, I don't need to have the rent to pay so I can get things going. And once it got going, me and my partner, we've gone out and got our own house. But, you have to make these sacrifices to do it. It's starting a business and starting it from scratch. I talk to entrepreneurs all the time and startup people, and they're like 3 months in, they're like so tired and need a holiday. I was like, how can you afford a holiday? Like, this is like the grind period. Like, I'm not encouraging it. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, just try and make it fit with your current lifestyle. There's a lot of information out there. But yeah, if you are on the fence or you don't feel like you've been in a corporate culture for too long, or you're turning up to work and you're not feeling like you want to be there, then yeah, I think it probably is right for you. Just try and get it in the circumstances that work for you. But yeah, just give it a go. You'll be surprised at what happens when you actually try and put yourself towards it.
Amazing advice, Liam. Really enjoyed our chat this morning. Thanks for answering these questions. I know a lot of people are going to find huge value in, your journey and learning from how you kind of start and been growing your business. Where can people find you? We'll put some links down in the description, but where can people find you online if they want to, learn more, engage your services, or, just, follow you along?
Yeah, so predominantly Mr. Liam Sanders on Twitter is my sort of Twitter handle. You'll find me on there. I provide daily sales and marketing tips, typically for small business owners and startups. So there'll be some useful content there. I also on LinkedIn, Liam Sanders, you can find me on there. That's sort of, I'll be sort of quite receptive on there. They're sort of my two go-to. And then through that, you'll be able to find my company page if there's any more information. But always reach out, DM. I'm really about sort of engaging with people, trying to help everyone I can. I offer consultations if you want any advice as well. So yeah, that's probably the best two spots to find me at the moment.
Awesome. Thanks. Everybody go follow Liam. You'll have the links are down below in the description. So thanks so much for watching today's episode. Please subscribe, like, and share this out to your audience. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, Liam. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.